The story kicks off with a man running through a dark, trashy street, wondering why this is happening to him. As he reaches the exit, he looks back, thinking maybe he has gotten away somehow. But out of nowhere, someone presses a knife to his throat, totally catching him off guard. He tries to bargain, offering money in exchange for his life, but before he even finishes, the assassin just says he's gonna die and slits his throat. The next morning, our main guy, Aragi Kai, a 17-year-old schoolboy, is on his way to school. He's really feeling the struggle of having to go to class after pulling an all-nighter as an assassin. Once he walks into his classroom, he notices some students whispering about him. Midu Shuji, the soccer team's star and class president, gives Kai a friendly greeting, but Kai just brushes him off and plops down at his desk, leaving Shuji looking a bit taken aback. Meanwhile, Nagayos Rina, the fashionable girl in class who always stands out, chimes in, saying Kai's as rude as ever. She walks over to Shuji, venting her annoyance and saying he really doesn't have to acknowledge someone like Kai. Shuji tries to smooth things over, saying Kai might just be tired, which is why he seems so standoffish. Out of nowhere, another student saunters in looking annoyed. Rina points out that someone even ruder just showed up. This guy, Arashi Shunsuke, is the head of a well-known local gang. A few kids greet him as he strolls in, but when he sees Kai passed out at his desk, he skips the pleasantries and goes straight to Kai, yelling at him to wake up. Arashi is super angry that Kai is sleeping like a rock. He reaches to grab Kai, but Kai surprises him by catching his hand before he knows what hit him. Kai yawns and asks what Arashi wants. Arashi, fuming, tells him to let go, but Kai finds a pressure point in Arashi's hand, making him freeze up. After a second, Kai releases him, casually apologizing if he made it hard for Arashi to move. Arashi quickly shakes it off, calling Kai a weirdo. Then Kenzaki Rin, a stunning girl who's great at martial arts and literature, chimes in, telling them to keep it down. Everybody knows her as the pretty yet cool top girl in school, and she turns to Arashi, asking if he's really trying to stir up trouble. Just then, Hashimoto Miri jumps in, reminding everyone to behave in school. She's super serious about her role on the disciplinary committee and genuinely cares about keeping things in line. Watching her confront Arashi, a guy named Narumi Yoshia makes a comment, noting that Arashi will just brush her off. Yoshia isn't known for being the most deep or serious guy around. After all that, Arashi just shrugs it off and takes his seat. Before long, everyone settles back in. It's just another typical day for the first-year class at Shinzo High School, filled with its usual challenges. Kai is still snoozing with his head down, but then he feels something weird. When he lifts his head, he notices that the strange vibe is coming from under Shuji's feet. There's this magic spell circle glowing bright blue on the floor, and soon the whole class is staring at it, confused and shocked, trying to figure out what's going on. The magic circle spreads, taking over the entire classroom floor. Shuji, looking bewildered, tells everyone to get out fast, but deep down, he knows there's no way they'll make it in time. The glow from the magic spell grows even stronger. In a flash, everyone gets teleported to what looks like an old castle. They all collapse on the ground, knocked out. When our main character finally comes to, he wonders where he is. The place is made of stone with tall pillars, and there's only one way out. It's hard to wrap his head around the fact that they just got sucked in by that blinding light. Eventually, the other students wake up too. Panic breaks out as they all start questioning how they got there. But Shuji manages to calm everyone down, insisting they should check on each other. Kai feels a bit relieved that Shuji is keeping things together. Arashi gets up and says they can't waste any time. He tells his two goons to follow him because they need to figure out what's going on. Kai thinks that sounds like a plan, but hesitates, saying he hears footsteps coming from the other side of the door. Arashi, also curious, listens as Kai senses that a man and a woman are approaching, wondering if they can actually talk to them. The door swings open and in walks a girl and an old man. They look like they stepped out of a medieval story, dressed as a knight and a princess in fancy. The girl greets the students, calling them hero candidates, and is amazed at how quickly they've calmed down. The students are a bit taken aback, wondering if these two are just dressed up for fun. Kai sizes them up. The guy looks like a warrior who's ready for action, while the girl seems fit but pretty normal to him. The girl introduces herself as Leonora, the Archbishop of the Holy Country of Digarast. The man with her is Gaius, a knight and her protector. Arashi interrupts, saying he's never heard of that country and asks if she's joking. Leonora insists she's serious, acknowledging it might sound odd. Shuji steps up and explains that they suddenly found themselves there and are feeling kind of lost. He asks her what's going on and if she has any info. Leonora starts explaining that they've been summoned to a parallel world to become humanity's hope in defeating the evil Demon King. They're the hero candidates in this world. The students find it hard to believe, thinking she's just spouting nonsense. Gaius warns Arashi to watch his mouth when talking to the saint of the country. Arashi gets annoyed and tells Gaius to be quiet. This makes Gaius pull out his sword, ready to teach them a lesson. But Leonora steps in, calming him down and explaining that the students don't really get the situation yet. Arashi jumps at Gaius, pumped for a fight and ready to take down the old man. Everyone's surprised by Arashi's guts, especially since he's going up against someone in full armor. But before Arashi can get a hit in, Gaius snaps his sword out and makes a tiny cut on Arashi's head. It all happens so fast that Arashi doesn't even see it coming. Gaius warns him that while he just got a single hair this time, he won't hold back next time. The crowd is left in shock. Then Leonora tells Gaius to chill out and put his sword away. Gaius says he's sorry for being aggressive, explaining that they don't mean to hurt anyone. He mentions that Leonora will give everyone the full scoop, but first, she asks everyone to be quiet and pay attention. She explains that the Demon King is invading, and humanity in their world is on the brink of extinction. The country of Diagrest is still fighting back, but they just don't have the strength to fully stop the invasion anymore. When Kai mentions the Demon King, Kai thinks it sounds like a typical story. She says they're humanity's last shot, the hero candidates. The students are having a tough time processing everything about the Demon King. They share their feelings of being powerless, saying they can't fight since they've never done anything like that before. Some girls start crying, wishing they could go back home. Gaius steps in to reassure them, reminding them that it might seem impossible, but they have to give it a shot. They can't go back to their world unless they beat the Demon King, which leaves everyone even more shocked. Kai starts questioning how true Gaius's words actually are, realizing that he's just trying to pump them up. She gets that people who've lived peaceful lives can't just become fighters overnight. They need some experience and skills for that. Arashi gets up, blood dripping from his head, and starts trash-talking, saying they got brought here without any notice and now expect them to just follow orders. He clearly has issues with people like them. Gaius notices that Arashi's fighting spirit is still strong and wonders if he could actually be a useful warrior. As he considers how to handle Arashi, worried he might become a real problem, he sees Leonora healing Arashi's wound and praying for him to find peace. Leonora says sorry for being rude. Arashi is taken aback when he sees his wounds healing up. Rina, meanwhile, is pretty confused about what's going on. Leonora explains that the power she's using is called the system, which their gods give them. She makes it easier to understand by saying it's a lot like magic from their world. Since she seems to know about their culture, Kai wonders if she's summoned people from their world before. Leonora then walks over to Shuji and reveals that this power is why they were all brought here. She slowly raises her hands toward his head, and suddenly, Shuji's wrist starts glowing. Out of nowhere, he finds himself holding a sword made of light. Leonora tells them that they can tap into the system's power to unlock their natural abilities for divine protection. She admits that it was kind of selfish to summon them, knowing they can't go back home, but she asks them to help her with their powers. Shuji points out that no matter how much power they get, they can't exactly jump into a fight right away. Leonora says they'll have training, and during that time, they'll be looked after. Taking charge, Shuji reassures his classmates, addressing their fears while stressing the importance of getting info and staying safe. He insists they should follow Leonora for now, and his classmates agree. Seeing they're ready to pitch in, Leonora starts granting them their divine powers. Mireille gets telekinesis, and Arashi ends up with explosion powers. Each classmate receives their own unique and cool abilities. Leonora then asks if anyone is left to get their powers. Kai raises his hand, showing he's the last one. Leonora puts her hand on his shoulder and gives him his ability. As he receives them, he notices his vision shifting, and once it's all done, he can see Leonora's stats. His eye color changes to red. Leonora tells him he's got the rare power of judgment, which lets him see the stats and details of his targets. Curious, he decides to check out his own stats and finds it's pretty much like a status screen in video games. super easy to understand. Out of nowhere, Arashi jumps at Kai trying to throw a punch, but Kai sees it coming and dodges like it's nothing. In a teasing tone, Arashi mocks Kai, saying the only difference now is his new eye color. Reina chimes in too, poking fun at Kai for acting all important. Kai can't help but notice how the other students are acting all high and mighty. They barely know anything about the world, and their powers are borrowed. Who knows when they could lose them? But he is chill because he has plenty of other ways to kill people. After everyone gets their powers, Leonora tells them it's going to be tough to control them at first, but these abilities will help them fight the Demon King. She advises them to get some rest since they're probably feeling worn out. Later that evening, the hero candidates are shown to their own rooms. Our main guy, Kai, thinks he should try to gather some info before hitting the sack. Kai sneaks out to search for more clues. Outside, he finds guards talking about how weak the hero candidates seem, and they laugh about the notion that these kids are meant to take down the Demon King. One guard even suggests that the Saints must know something they don't. Kai hides behind a tree, eavesdropping on their chat. This is the third time he's run into guards, and he figures they're really strengthening their defenses. Using his judgment power, he checks one guard's stats and sees he only has skills in swordsmanship. Not ready to give up, Kai keeps looking for more info. He's also figured out the layout of the city. It's a fortified place. He wants to sneak into the inner castle, but the gates are crawling with guards, which makes it tricky. He decides to play it cool and comes up with a plan to try again later. Meanwhile, in an open field, Rina is searching for a good spot to practice with her two minions. They're there to test out their new powers, conjuring their elements and seeing how they work. Rina is really curious about the divine protection they've been given. While hiding in a bush, Kai watches them when he suddenly feels this weird sensation. The girls hear a weird noise coming from the bushes, and they start to guess what it could be. Out of nowhere, a giant lizard-like creature shows up, attracted by their magic. The girls freak out at the sight of it. Kai, who's never seen anything like this before, quickly checks the monster's stats with his magic. To his surprise, it's actually stronger than Rina and the rest. The monster lets out a loud roar and starts chasing after the girls. Kai figures out that while the lizard is strong and aggressive, it only runs straight ahead and doesn't seem very smart. He pulls out a knife, unsure if it'll even hurt the thick-skinned beast. He takes aim and throws it, managing to land it right in the monster's tough hide. Kai realizes that throwing knives actually work, even if the cut isn't deep. While the girls are sprinting for their lives, Rina suddenly trips over a stone and falls, getting hurt and becoming an easy target. The monster catches up to her, and she's panicking, terrified to see it so close. Just when it looks like the creature is about to stomp on her, it stops suddenly and collapses right in front of her. The girls look around and notice a knife stuck in the monster's head, with blood pooling around it. They wonder if someone has rescued Rina, but decide there's no time to figure it out. They need to get away from any other monsters. Kai knows he doesn't have to help them, but he can't just walk away. He thinks about how tough things are going to be if monsters like this are out there. He starts to go over to the monster to grab his knife when he suddenly feels like someone is close by. He quickly ducks behind the creature's body and scans the area but doesn't see anyone. Wondering if someone is there, our boy decides he should get back too. After he leaves, a mysterious person, completely covered in a robe, comes out from behind a wall. The person smashes the monster's head, squeezing out its eyes. He says to himself that he is disappointed after seeing how useless and weak the hero candidates are. But for him, our boy smells just like. The following day, Gaius brings the dead monster's body to the hero candidates, who are shocked to see something like that. Gaius explains that the monster was found dead last night near the royal capital. All of the students are confused about seeing this. Gaius continues that the Demon King has driven the monsters to a frenzy, and as a result, they crave human flesh. He tells the hero candidates that they will be fighting things like that monster. Gaius asks Steady, a researcher, if he's noticed anything strange about the monster. Steady mentions there are signs of sorcery involved, probably from a mid-grade demon. He thinks they might be scouting to check out the new hero candidate's skills. Kai wonders if sorcery is different from magic since it's a term Steady just started using. Shuji jumps in, asking if that means the demon controlled the monster. Steady explains that powerful demons can cast servitude spells to control weaker ones. Just as he's about to go into more detail, Gaius interrupts and pulls Steady away, even though Steady wants to share more info. Kai sees Steady as a valuable source of information and thinks he could really use his help, but he can't ignore the bigger problem. Someone's controlling that creature. Suddenly, Kai remembers the creepy vibe he felt last night came from a demon. It was pretty skilled because he barely picked up on it. He wonders if the demon is still around. While he's deep in thought, he suddenly senses someone watching him. He tells himself that fear leads to death, and he firmly declares that he's not scared. Arashi tells Gaius that they can't go back to their world unless they take down the demon, and he's not planning on sticking around in this world for too long. The other students are on the same page. Kai realizes they finally grasp that this isn't just a game. They need to get serious about the situation fast. Just then, Leonora walks in and reassures everyone, saying there's no need to be scared. They just have to figure out how to tap into their powers. Since they're from another world, their ability to grow will be different compared to the locals. A week has gone by since the students kicked off their training. Kai spends most of his time in the library and has already learned the new language's alphabet. He finds it odd that they can even communicate at all. Since he doesn't have the right skills for battle, he's left out of physical training but can hang out in the library. The other students don't seem to care much for Leonora's focus on reading. While looking through the library, Kai notices there aren't many books on the history and culture of this world, and nothing at all about demons. He sees that the other students are making crazy progress, just like Leonora said they would. Among them, the top 5 are Narumi, who controls the wind, Arashi, who has explosive powers, Kenzaki, with telekinesis, Hashimoto, who messes with the earth, and Rina, who whips up fire. But one student is really standing out with his insane growth rate, Shuji. Shuji has surpassed the swordsmanship teachers he learned from, and he's feeling pretty thankful about it. Meanwhile, Kai is using his judgment ability and realizes that all his stats have jumped to above B grade, which is crazy, considering they were under D grade just last week. He's thinking this progress is lightning fast and wonders if it's linked to some sort of divine protection. Out of nowhere, 2 guys come up to Kai and start making fun of him, saying he's totally useless in training if he can't even fight. Kai can tell that others are looking down on him too. Those guys have gotten cocky since getting their new powers. One of them tries to mess with Kai, but he just flicks his leg casually, making the bully trip over, and then discreetly takes him down to the ground. At that moment, Leonora and Gaius show up at the training ground. They scan the scene and see all the students already hard at work. Leonora announces that, since the students have advanced faster than she expected, she's going to push their plans forward. Narumi jumps in and asks if she's planning to send them out to fight the Demon King, but she shuts that down, saying she wants them to focus on training against monsters first. Everyone looks a bit uneasy at this, and Kai definitely feels the same way. The next day, Gaius and Leonora take all the hero candidates to a forest for some combat drills. The area is full of obstacles, so the candidates can't just move around as one big group. Instead, they split into teams of 2 or 3. When the candidates hear this, they start teaming up. Shuji and Reina pair up, and Arashi teams up with his minions. Gaius checks the groups, but our boy and Kenzaki are still without partners. Kenzaki wonders if the others are avoiding her because they're scared, but she has no choice but to partner with our boy. Kai notices that she has a pretty confident vibe and seems a bit indifferent, plus she carries herself with some pride. When she catches our boy staring at her, she asks what's up, but Kai just plays it cool and brushes it off as nothing. Leonora kicks things off by announcing a special reward for the team that takes down the most monsters during their drill. As the action gets underway, Kenzaki confidently tells Kai that her powers are way stronger than anyone else's and that she doesn't need his help. She warns him not to get in her way, and as Kai watches her, he wonders if he's got any pride left. Still, he wants to check out her combat skills first, since he senses 4 hidden creatures around them. Out of nowhere, one of the monsters jumps out from behind a bush, catching Kenzaki off guard. The monster charges at them, but she quickly uses her powers to take it down. The creature goes limp on the ground. Her ability is called Domination, which makes the target follow her commands. Kai cautions her that there are more monsters hiding around. Kenzaki, clearly in control, tells the subdued monster to drop its weapon and raise its hands. She looks really tired and tells Kai that using her powers for too long really drains her mana. He pushes her to take out the goblin since another monster is about to attack, but she hesitates because it kinda looks human. Kai tries to get through to her, pointing out that it's still a monster that tried to hurt them. He picks up a stone and thinks that she's just a naive student from Japan, too used to a peaceful life. Kai starts to wonder if she can actually make the right choices when things get tough. While he's tossing the stone around, 3 more goblins show up. He tells Kenzaki there are monsters around, and she tells the goblins to bow down. Then Kai asks her what her next move is, and she asks him to help instead of just standing there. Kai shoots back that she's the one who told him not to interfere. Hearing this, she decides she will kill them herself. She orders the goblins to twist their own necks. Suddenly, all the goblins obey, and this kills them. Kai is shocked to realize she can give orders, too. She mentions that the tougher the order, the less likely it is to work out. Grossed out by the goblin bodies around them, she finds comfort in Kai's advice, who reminds her they were the bad guys since they attacked first. She wonders how he stays so chill, especially since he doesn't have any powers. He tells her not to sweat it and that staying calm is just one of his strong points. Kai asks if she wants to head back since she's feeling scared, but she proudly says no way. He can tell she's trying to look tough, and he admits she's handling things better than he thought. Meanwhile, Narumi and Hashimoto are running from a huge monster. Realizing that running won't save them, they decide to take it on together with their wind and rock powers. They throw a giant boulder at the beast, but it smashes right through it without even a scratch. Hashimoto is getting more freaked out as the massive creature closes in on them. Kenzaki really wants to head back to her world because she hasn't paid her grandfather back for raising her and wants to show how much she's grown. Kai asks if she's sure about moving forward, pointing out they might get lost. But she's confident they just need to keep going straight. Kai warns her she might be underestimating the forest, which annoys her. She tells him to chill and wonders why he's acting so smug. In return, Kai tells her not to glare at people like that. Suddenly, they hear a loud noise. Kenzaki recognizes it as Hashimoto's voice. Kai thinks she might be in trouble and asks what they should do. Kenzaki insists they need to help her, hoping she's all right. This just irritates Kenzaki even more when Kai comments on how nice she is. Meanwhile, Hashimoto gets tossed a few feet away by a monster. Narumi yells at her, asking if she's okay. Despite being hurt and bleeding, Hashimoto tells Narumi to run. But it's too late. The monster's about to go for them. Kenzaki uses her powers, commanding the monster to freeze. Narumi thanks her, but she warns him it won't hold the monster for long. Curious about Kenzaki's abilities, Kai asks Narumi if Hashimoto is still alive. Narumi says she's in pain but breathing. Kai tells Kenzaki to carry Hashimoto on his back so they can escape. Even though he's hesitant to leave and wants to help fight, he realizes Hashimoto's safety comes first. As they make a run for it, Kai uses his powers to check the monster's stats and is freaked out by how tough it is. He notices the monster's fur looks super solid in figures. His attacks won't do much, plus it seems to be some mutant species. Kenzaki shouts that she can't hold on any longer, and Kai tells her she's bought them enough time to get away. She agrees, realizing how serious things are. Just when she's about to take off, she finds out she can't use her legs anymore because she's totally drained from fighting off the monster. Seeing how bad it is, Kai pulls out a smoke grenade and activates it, filling the area with thick smoke. This gives him a bit more time to pick Kenzaki up and find a spot to hide. She feels embarrassed being carried and asks him what the smoke is. He tells her it's a smoke grenade he whipped up during their training, but really he's just lying. He had some gear with him before getting dragged into this mess, and he doesn't want to waste it since he's only got basic assassin stuff. Kenzaki apologizes, saying she pushed them to go save their friends, but now she's the one needing saving. Kai tells her not to say sorry. He just wants to hear her say thank you. She goes along with it and thanks him. Then Kai tells her that if she acts all shy, people will like her more. But she rolls her eyes, feeling annoyed. After that, she insists they need to bolt, but he tells her it's not necessary. Just when the monster starts sniffing around for them, Shuji and the others show up. Shuji jumps on to the monster to attack, but when the creature tries to fight back, it ends up injuring its own hand. Rina steps in with her fire powers, curious to see if the monster can handle the heat. Unfortunately, her flames don't seem to do much. However, Shuji realizes that her fire is at least slowing it down, so he comes up with a plan for them to take it down together. They both charge at the monster again, totally unaware that someone's watching them from a distance. It's Delphus, a seasoned assassin demon. He's smirking to himself, feeling pretty sure that the armored monster can't take out these hero candidates given how fast they're improving. He's especially impressed with how calm they are, especially Shuji. Even though he was just supposed to scout the place, he decides to change gears and take them out instead. Back with Shuji and the others, they manage to beat the monster. Just as Delphus is about to attack, he suddenly finds a dagger at his throat. It's Kai. Caught off guard, Delphus is freaking out, trying to figure out how Kai snuck up on him. Kai just looks at him calmly and says his parents taught him well. Delphus drops his weapon, realizing he needs a quick way to bail. Kai goes for his legs, knocking him down. He warns Delphus to keep quiet because he doesn't want Shuji and the others to catch on. Kai tells Delphus that if he answers a few questions, he'll let him go. When Delphus asks who he is, Kai just says he's the one who hangs out in the shadows. With no other options, Delphus knows he has to play along since Kai has the upper hand. Kai's been thinking that the person who was watching him the other night might actually be Delphus. He knows they're being monitored, and it's all part of his plan to let Shuji and the others take on some fights. This will help him draw Delphus out. Cutting in, Kai makes it clear that he needs some info. Since they haven't been in this world for long, he figures Delphus has to answer whatever questions he throws at him. Delphus smirks and declines, but Kai slashes his hands, too, and says that it will be easier if he just cooperates. Delphus tells him not to underestimate him, saying that he consumes some poison he is carrying, killing himself on the spot. Kai understands that taking on the Demon King's army is going to be a tough fight. Out of nowhere, Kanzaki shows up, looking stunned when he spots a dead body close by. Kai asks her how long she's been watching. She replies that she's been keeping an eye on things since the person was on the ground. He explains that the dead demon was an assassin from the Demon King's army and that the monster they ran into earlier was its pawn. He adds that the first lizard monster they encountered was also the assassin's doing. Feeling a little scared, she realizes that the Demon King is after the hero candidates. She then asks him how he noticed the assassin when nobody else did. Thinking there's no point in hiding it anymore, he spills the beans about his family being in the assassination business, which helps him spot people doing similar work. Kanzaki is taken aback by this news. Kai tells her it's up to her to believe him and asks her not to mention the dead body to anyone since the hero candidates are already freaked out over Hashimoto's state. She agrees, surprised that he cares about them so much. He says it's just because they're not as experienced in fighting as he is. Still, he thinks Kanzaki's skills in domination could come in handy down the road. All the hero candidates are gathered around Hashimoto, who's lying on the floor looking pretty bad. Hano, a student with healing powers, sits down close by and starts using her abilities to help her out. Everyone's pretty impressed. Hano says it'll take about an hour for Hashimoto to be good as new. The group praises Shuji for taking down the monster, and he's over to the side, feeling relieved. He notices Kanzaki staring at him and asks why, but she just brushes him off. Then Leonora and Gaius walk in, and the candidates immediately start asking where they've been and why they didn't come to help. Gaius explains that he was keeping an eye on them the whole time and says rescuing them every time isn't the best idea. Shuji jumps in, pointing out that it was a serious situation. Hashimoto was in danger of losing her life. Gaius responds that facing danger is just part of military training. He tells them this is the kind of battle they'll have to deal with as they move forward, so they shouldn't be complaining about it. Shuji throws some questions at Gaius, pointing out that if he claimed the area was safe with just weak monsters, then what's up with this armored one? Leonora chimes in, suggesting it's probably the demon assassin's doing since armored monsters shouldn't even be around here. Gaius and Leonora realize they need to beef up their defenses since they don't know that. Kai has already taken out the assassin. Leonora insists they should step up their training. She warns that at their current levels, they're all pretty much toast. This freaks everyone out, and Shuji tries to talk her down, but she sticks to her guns that getting stronger is their only shot at survival. When they hear they might actually die and need to power up, the students are understandably scared. Shuji tells Leonora it's crazy to even be talking about this, especially since everyone is still rattled from their first fight. Leonora counters that it might sound wild, but their levels really do put them in serious danger. Arashi, not thrilled about being bossed around, decides to confront Leonora, but Gaia steps in, reminding everyone that they're just pawns in Leonora's game and can't ignore her orders. The tension rises, and Shuji jumps in to calm Arashi down, stressing that following orders is their only option right now. Gaius, impressed by Shuji's knack for mediation, reassures the candidates that they matter a lot to the country. Arashi, on the other hand, isn't satisfied and goes after Gaius with his explosive power, but Gaius dodges smoothly. He counters with a punch that sends Arashi crashing to the ground. Gaius then declares that they're all weak and warns that starting tomorrow, things are going to get a lot tougher. He and Leonora then head out. Arashi gets up with a bleeding face and swears to kill Gaius for sure. The day after the training, Steady, the researcher, is ready to lead the next session. He's heard that some students got hurt, but he's relieved to find out that one student has bounced back. Steady thinks it's pretty cool that they have someone with healing abilities in their group. He announces that they'll be fighting monsters at his research facility, where he keeps different types of locked-up creatures. He's raising them for his experiments, and Leonora thinks it's a great setup for the students to train in. As the combat drill kicks off, the hero candidates get thrown into battle against the monsters. Kai notices that everyone is surprisingly chill, even though they're up against some serious competition. A few students struggle with one particular monster, and Shuji speaks up, telling Steady that these monsters seem too tough for the candidates. But Steady hits back, saying that Leonora wants him to keep training standards high, so he can't lighten the load for them. He insists that the hero candidates, with their divine protection, shouldn't be losing at all. For him, it all comes down to willpower. He believes they're only scared because they're holding back and afraid. Shuji wonders if pushing through really makes a difference, and Steady insists that if they execute things right, they can level up their powers and maybe even unlock new ones. Kai chimes in, mentioning that he can see Shuji has picked up a new ability. Surprised, Shuji asks Steady if he can test it out. Steady, eager to see what it can do, gives him the green light. Now, Shuji steps into the combat drill and puts his new powers to the test. In an instant, he cuts the monster's hand and head with a clean slash. Kai realizes that Shuji will no longer struggle against an armored monster. He wonders if his judgment powers have leveled up as well. While observing, Kai notices that Arashi has also gained a new power, but he chooses not to share this information with him. Later that night, Arashi comes up with a plan to take out Gaius, tie up Leonora, and get her to help them find a way back to their real world. A bunch of other candidates are on board and want to escape this place too. Arashi asks Narumi to join in, thinking they'd have a better shot as a group, since Narumi is also fed up with their situation. Even though Narumi struggles with the idea of killing someone, he eventually decides to go along with Arashi and the others. The next day, Shuji is grinding away in training when Kai comes over and compliments his hard work. Shuji admits he's still pretty weak and needs to step up his game. Kai reassures him that, at his current skill level, he could take on half the knights in their world. But Shuji isn't satisfied. He knows it's not enough to beat Gaius. He feels like he needs way more power to keep everyone safe. Then Kai brings up Leonora and Gaius. Shuji says he's aware they're just using them as pawns, but he's confident they won't actually hurt them. Kai asks if that means Shuji is ready to risk it all until the Demon King is out of the picture. Shuji nods and insists he's made up his mind. He declares that he wants to be the country's hero and take down the Demon King himself, all while negotiating to ensure everyone else can live safely in exchange. Kai asks Leonora if she'll let him go for it. Shuji seems pretty confident about it. Just then, Leonora and Gaius walk in. She tells Steady that he'll take care of training the candidates while she's away, and he's happy to help out. Rena wonders if they're going somewhere, and Leonora mentions they'll be gone for a few days. She and Gaius will leave later. On the way, Gaius asks her if she's really sure about her decision. Leonora wants to know why he thinks that way. He tells her to stop playing around and get to the point. Then he brings up that Arashi is up to something. Leonora agrees, saying it could be a rebellion brewing against them. Gaius asks what her next move is, and she replies that she's curious to see what they'll do next. Gaius is feeling a bit on edge about the rebellion. I mean, these are hero candidates with powers, so it could get messy pretty fast. But Leonora's pretty chill about it. She knows they can't take her down. She suggests they should set up a hierarchy to crush the rebellion and put an end to their nonsense once and for all. She also hints that she's picked up on some other sketchy stuff, but decides to keep that under wraps for now. Later that night, Kai's in a fight with a monster, and he finishes it off, just like he did the first night. Only takes him 13 seconds. When he checks his judgment power, he realizes he's leveled up. Suddenly, another monster shows up, but this one's tough and his blades aren't cutting it. It's the perfect chance to try out his new skills. He uses his new ability to find the monster's weak spot and takes it out in no time. It's a decent skill, but he knows he needs to level up even more to really make it in that world. More monsters come at him, but he spots their weak spots and takes them down pretty easily. Kai thinks it's getting easier to figure out where to hit them. He's looking for a bigger challenge to really test his skill. Then he hears some footsteps and sees Kenzaki. He asks what she's doing out here so late, and she says she's been looking for him since he's not at the dorm. He tells her to get out of here because the forest can be pretty dangerous at night, but she shoots back that he should be the one saying that. Kai tells her he's used to fighting at night, but she definitely isn't. She cuts him off and asks what he's up to anyway. He mentions he's testing some new power. She's curious and asks what it is, saying she heard about it from Steady. Kai decides to mess with her and teases her about why he should tell her. She admits she's worried about him, and when he presses her on it, she turns red and starts making excuses. But he tells her to head back because he's going to keep testing for a bit. But as soon as Kenzaki says she is coming with him, they see smoke rising from some distance. It is their dorm, completely on fire. Reina and Shuji are struggling to fight a monster, and Shuji is trying his best to protect Reina. However, more monsters seem to be coming toward them, but they are also ready to fight. As Kai and Kenzaki arrive at the scene, Narumi says that he is glad to see them both. He says that when he woke up, he saw the fire and the monsters. Kai says that it is a human's doing, and the ringleader has to be close by. He tells them to find and catch whoever has done it. Steady appears on top of the building and tells them that their judgment is good. Kai says that he is wondering how the monsters appeared, but now it all makes sense. They are all monsters from Steady's laboratory. He has also given them some medicine to grow stronger, since they were too weak to be of any use. Kai asks him what his objective is and what benefit he would get from killing candidates. Steady tells them it is a direct order from above. He is told to destroy the candidates, even if it means throwing away his current position. Kenzaki asks if it is Leonora's order, but he denies it, saying, "Of course not. It is not that vixen's order. It is the Demon King's order. He is the Demon King's spy." He says that if he does the job right, he will be offered the post of a researcher over there too. Kai asks him if he has fallen so deep into darkness that all he cares about is researching monsters. Steady says that monsters are way beyond human comprehension, so he tells his monsters to go after them. Kenzaki tries to use her powers to stop them, but right when she's about to tell the monsters that Steady is their enemy, he jumps in and says there's no point since they easily break her spell. Kenzaki is totally shocked by this. The monsters leap at her, ready to attack, but Kai rushes in and takes them down quickly, saving her, which really gets Steady fired up. He can't believe how strong Kai is. Kay keeps taking out the other monsters, taking down almost a dozen of them. This just makes Steady even more furious because Kai didn't seem that powerful at all. Kai uses his judgment powers on Steady and notices that all his stats are pretty weak. But what really stands out is that Steady has domination powers, even stronger than Kenzaki's. That's why she couldn't hold him back. Steady is rattled and pulls out something he didn't want to use, but feels he has no choice. He warns Kai that he'll soon find out what it is. Just as Kai decides to leap at him to attack, a massive red dragon shoots fire in his direction. This is Steady's secret weapon. The dragon starts hurling boulders at them. Kai tells Narumi to get Kenzaki out of there since another attack's about to land. Kai quickly scans for the dragon's weak spot, which he finds in its neck. He tries to cut it, but his attack power isn't strong enough. Out of nowhere, Arashi shows up and starts attacking the dragon, bragging about how he can hurt it. But then the dragon hits back hard. Kai tells Arashi they need to work together to take it down. Arashi is curious why Kai thinks he needs him. Kai explains he can spot the weak spots, but he lacks the firepower. Arashi, being stubborn, insists he doesn't need help from a newbie. But they don't have time to argue as the dragon charges at them again. It breathes fire at Arashi, which finally makes him agree to team up with Kai. Kai points out that the dragon's weak. Spot is a scale on its neck and plans to distract it while Arashi goes for the attack. As the dragon rushes at them, Kai keeps it busy, and Arashi strikes the weak point, sending the beast crashing to the ground. With the dragon down for the count, Kai confronts Steady, asking if he has any backup since his trump card just got taken out. Steady claims he has other monsters, but it turns out Shuji and the rest took care of them already. As he tries to flee, Narumi grabs him. Kai pressures him to spill the bean, and he reluctantly agrees since he's a coward. But just as he's about to talk, his body turns purple, and he drops dead. Looks like there was a curse that would kill him if he leaked any info. Kai figures the Demon King's army isn't going to let up anytime soon. The next day, the candidates confront Leonora as she comes back, since she was the one who put Steady in charge. She apologizes and explains that she didn't think a weak demon tamer like him could cause so much chaos. The candidates are shocked to find out she knew Steady was a demon tamer. They grill her about why she let him hang around them if she was aware of it. In her defense, She says she already warned them that their training was going to get tougher, and what happened was just part of that. Gaius accuses them of not being careful enough, kind of like not seeing a fire at night. Leonora then tells everyone that they're heading to the royal capital next. They're set to reveal themselves as hero candidates during a public parade, and they'll be on stage like the stars of the show. That evening, they all head out for the capital, and when night falls, they camp out in a field. While eating, Arashi tells his minions that there are about 30 soldiers with them, and honestly, they aren't that strong. He thinks it's time to put their plan in motion since they can easily take them out. He asks one of his minions to call Narumi and his group over. Kai hears Arashi's speech and agrees that there aren't many soldiers with them, but that's mainly because Gaius and Leonora are confident they can handle things themselves. He goes over to Shuji and asks if they can chat later that night. Arashi and Narumi meet up in the nearby woods, ready to attack the soldiers, but Shuji and the other candidates show up to stop them. Shuji mentions that he heard about Arashi's plan to kill Leonora and Gaius, and Arashi is shocked to find out his plan got leaked. They try to reason with him, saying there might be better ways to handle this than just killing them. Arashi tells Shuji that he just talks and asks if he has a real plan. Shuji replies that he'll act as a pawn and take down the Demon King, and in return, he'll make sure everyone's safe. Arashi isn't interested in that deal and tells him to get lost, but Shuji and the others block his way. Unable to agree, they end up fighting, both surprised by each other's power. Suddenly, 2 soldiers come in and tell them to hit the hay since they've got an early trip in the morning. Arashi walks off, frustrated, saying he's tired of the weakness and there's no point in talking to them. The next day, the group rolls into the royal capital, and it's buzzing with energy because of the big ceremony. The streets are packed with people who can't believe they're seeing the hero candidates. You can really feel the excitement and hope from the folks around them. When they reach the castle, they're met by Holy Knight Rains, who suggests they chill out for a bit. The candidates are stoked about the royal treatment, enjoying fluffy beds and hot baths, which the girls are especially into. They also indulge in some seriously fancy food. Meanwhile, Kai decides to scope out the place, but notices there are a lot of guards lurking around. He sees Knight Rains chatting with his soldiers, talking about how he thinks the candidates are tougher than most kids their age. One soldier brings up a worry that letting the hero candidates into the royal capital could attract demons. Rains reassures them, saying the candidates are strong and can take on whatever comes their way. Kai's still got questions, so he heads to town at night. He drops into a pub, grabs an ale and some snacks, and tunes into the chatter about the hero candidates. The locals are saying these candidates just look like regular kids. He picks up on a vibe that people are way more scared of the church than of the king or the nobles. Curious, he asks the bartender for the scoop, saying he's new around here and a bit clueless. The bartender fills him in about the Demon King who's been attacking the kingdom and how this guy has the power to charm humans with his crazy strength. He also mentions that some followers of the Demon King recently blew up a noble's estate. As Kai leaves the pub, he's wondering if having those candidates in the capital is really a smart move. Just then, Kenzaki shows up looking worried. She explains she's gathering info since they're in a totally new place. She offers to help, but he's not really into it at first, which ticks her off a bit. After some light teasing, he finally agrees to let her tag along, asking her to find out more about the royal capital. Kenzaki takes off to gather intel, and Kai splits too, totally unaware that a nearby guy's been eavesdropping on their whole convo. The guy smirks as he watches her go. Kai finally makes it back to his room after a long, tiring search. Even though he didn't find anything important, he figured out there's a new enemy out there. Just then, he hears some noise outside his room and steps out to find the other candidates, hanging out in the hallway. When he asks what's going on, he finds out Kenzaki is missing. They hadn't really noticed because she doesn't share a room with anyone. When they ask him, Kai says he has no clue where she is. Shuji suggests that she's probably not in the castle, and that they need to start searching for her now that dawn is just around the corner. Everyone splits up to look for her. While he's searching, Kai stumbles upon Kenzaki's student ID lying on the street. As soon as he picks it up, 4 masked guys jump him. Luckily, he reacts quickly and takes down 3 of them right away. He then faces off against the 4th attacker, demanding to know who they are since they don't seem very skilled. The 4th guy looks so shocked that he doesn't even try to run. Kai pressures him for information. Meanwhile, Kenzaki is tied up somewhere in a castle, being held hostage. 2 spies are grilling her for info about the hero candidates. When she won't give any, one of the spies rips her shirt. What they don't know is that Kai is already there, watching them. Using his judgment powers, he quickly realizes these guys are pretty weak. He can't believe someone as tough as Kanzaki got caught by such losers, and he swiftly takes them out. Kanzaki feels a bit embarrassed seeing him in her awkward situation. He frees her from her chains, but just as they're about to leave, he senses someone coming in fast. It's Rains, the Holy Knight, and he charges at them without a second thought. They both manage to dodge his attack, but Rhaenys just smiles and says he has to kill them. Besides being the Holy Knight, he also serves as the general of the Demon King's army. Kai can't help but think that the country is really in trouble now, especially with the capital crawling with enemies.